everybody, welcome back. Today is going to be a bit of like a Sunday catch-up study vlog kind of. I have a few things that I want to get done before the week of classes, and then I also am about to head out to just like do a couple errands and stuff. Like I have to return a library book, I want to go to Walmart, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, I want to finish reading Orlando because I'm a little bit behind on that. It's the last book that we've done for our Wolf class, and really all that I had known about Orlando, I feel like was things that I'd gotten from like the Tilda Swinton movie, which I haven't actually seen in its entirety, but is like, I don't know, I feel like that's just kind of the popular culture thing that we associate with Orlando as a whole, if you haven't read the book. So yeah, I am really enjoying the novel. I feel like it's where I feel like I'm enjoying Wolf's style the most, which is kind of funny because it's like her like fun project. Like it's supposed to be very exuberant and just like fun and kind of bawdy, but it does have this like kind of sharp like gender cultural critique. But something that I didn't know about Orlando before going in, I mean, I knew it because we talked about it ahead of time in class, but like I didn't know it about the book before class, is that it's really just kind of stunningly racist at points. Like the opening of the book is absolutely horrific. And so it opens in this really crazy way. Like basically Orlando at the time is like he's a teenager at that point, I think. Nobleman in the like Elizabethan era, and he is at home and he's essentially like playing with this like older head of a black person that one was either his father or his grandfather had like brought back, and he's like, I'm gonna do the same thing because I'm gonna be like a great nobleman and continue on what my family has done. So it's like a couple pages of that, and then it just sort of moves on. And then that is like so far the worst scene, but it does just bring up, like it's just going, it's fun, it's silly, whatever. And then there's like really awful language. And so like we'd read a few essays, we talked about it a lot in class. And like, you know, if you're inclined to kind of like give Virginia Woolf some grace, like, and I think it is what is attempting to do is like a critique of empire and colonialism in this kind of like perspective, but it's just like such a bad one. Like it's so kind of clumsy and juvenile and poorly thought out, which is kind of hard to reconcile with someone who is so like sharp and kind of forward thinking and very astute about other sort of cultural critiques. So seeing those kinds of blind spots is kind of hard to wrap your head around, especially knowing that Virginia Woolf's like grandfather and father were really like staunch abolitionists, and that like we talked a bit about where Virginia Woolf had lived, and there would have been a lot of like black academics and writers and people around her. And so like seeing what she's doing with what her life was and the kind of like knowledge that she should have had but clearly didn't is tough. And I'm reading a different edition, but one of the girls in class like mentioned something that someone had written in the introduction, and it was, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it was essentially that like we aren't reading Orlando, we aren't coming back to Orlando in spite of that. You're coming back and reading it because of that, because I think that if I'm remembering correctly, I feel like the Sally Potter movie doesn't even like really touch on that or deal with it. So I think that like what people know about Orlando is not that. And so I think the introduction was kind of like, this is why you read it. It's not to like rationalize or attempt to explain it, but to deal with it, or to like try to read through it or with it, I guess. I don't know. So that opened up like some really interesting conversations. We read some interesting articles about it. Like one was like really, really beautifully written. So we were talking a bit about the kind of like aesthetic of that writing in itself as a critique of what Woolf was doing, which I thought was a really cool point that someone had made in class. So yeah, I've been like doing Orlando stuff, and then kind of my homework for the weekend has been to watch a bunch of movies, which like can't complain about that. Because I want to watch the Sally Potter one because I'm kind of thinking that I might write on that for my final paper. I haven't been like stressing about it, but I potentially should be. It's not like stress time yet, but it's like, okay, I have not come up with anything yet for my final essay, and usually I like would have had an idea of what I wanted to do before now. Like usually I at least know what text I want to do and like vaguely what topic, but with the Wolf class I've been very like, I got nothing. And I had a meeting with the professor last week and essentially being like, yeah, I don't know. Because I just haven't felt super drawn towards or away from any of the like texts that we've been talking about. So really my only idea was that like I think doing something with adaptation would be cool because that's kind of what I'm interested in. Also like it's not gonna be directly related to my thesis or anything, but like my thesis is probably gonna be dealing with like adaptation to an extent. So some of like the readings that I would be doing for like adaptation studies and everything would be sort of relevant or would kind of feed into that. So that, which would be nice to have some of that overlap, because that's like kind of, if you can, that's something that's really nice to do with your coursework and your PhD, is like for it to work with or sort of feed into your own interests and what you're going to be studying moving forward. Especially in like if you want to like polish up the essays to try to like get them published or do presentations on them or something, like being able to see the kind of through line of like how this is connected to your later work, I think is ideal if possible. But yeah, so we did read like the hours and stuff, but do I have anything new to say about the hours? Probably not. So I might do something with Orlando, we'll see. And then also something that's on the course syllabus is, I believe it's called Orlando A Political Biography, which I'm really excited about. Basically they cast, I think over 20, maybe like around 25 trans actors to all play Orlando throughout the movie. So I think that that should be really cool. So yeah, gonna watch that. That's what we're talking about this coming week. In my George Eliot class, we just finished Silas Marner, which this is far and away my favorite book so far, which I think is actually interesting because this is kind of regarded as like, my understanding is that this is kind of regarded as like a, you know, the one that's kind of inexplicable of Virginia Woolf's works, because it's a bit different. Like it's not so different, but I mean like, look, it's like a third of the length and it's kind of fairy tale-esque. Like one of the articles I was reading described this one as kind of like a bridge connecting her earlier pastoral works and then some of her later ones. She also just started working on this sort of partway through working on Romola, which is interesting. I mean, she was working. But yeah, my group did a presentation on this on Friday, and we were basically talking about the kind of folkloric elements of the text. So my section of the presentation was on kind of the idea of the novel blending George Eliot's like very characteristic kind of realism and the folkloric elements of the story, because there's a lot of kind of like, there's no magic, but it feels like it has kind of magical qualities. Like Silas is a weaver who's obsessed with his gold. We have like lost orphan children that are then like rediscovered. Raveloe, the town, feels very kind of like isolated and like its own kind of world. So yeah, it's an interesting sort of setup. So that's partly why I liked it, because like give me anything kind of fairy tale and folklore-y and I will be on board. Also it's shorter, which was nice. Like I don't mind a long book, but the thing with George Eliot's writing itself is that I really enjoy kind of what she's exploring. Like I think she has really interesting perspectives on religion, because she was actually an atheist, which caused a lot of kind of tension with her family when she declared this, because you know it wasn't really in vogue in the 1800s. And so then eventually they were like, it's fine, just come to church, but you can think about whatever you want while you're there. And she was like, good enough compromise for me. And she deals a lot with the religion in her text, but it's not in like a anti-religion kind of way. Like often religion is depicted pretty positively, but it's less about the actual faith and more about kind of the community that being part of it brings you, which I think she handles in kind of compelling ways. And then also one of her kind of main shticks is that she was writing at a time where like a lot of writing and especially pastoral literature was very idyllic, and she was very much of a position that like she wanted to depict people as they actually were. So like if you're going and you're overhearing all the kind of like old drunks chatting at a bar, it's probably not going to be the most intellectually stimulating conversation you've ever heard in your life, but that is more a reflection of real life, which is interesting. It's just that the woman loves to pontificate. She likes to philosophize. She occasionally likes to lecture. I literally wrote in my reading journal, like, George, the horse is dead, you can stop beating it. Cause she just draws things out. And I feel like with her other books, it felt like the plot or the story didn't necessarily warrant the books being as long as they were. Whereas this book, I feel like everything just kind of felt more controlled. It felt like the other books were kind of like she had an idea or something that she wanted to talk about and then kind of built the plot around that. Whereas this felt much more like, this is the story that I want to tell, if that kind of makes sense. And so I feel like it just felt not necessarily like more concise or more edited necessarily or polished, but it just felt a bit more like direct, if that makes sense at all. I don't know. I really enjoyed this. This is definitely the one that I would recommend the most. I haven't read Middlemarch, which is of course her like most famous one. So I don't know, maybe read that and then this one, but definitely what I've enjoyed the most so far. I don't suspect Daniel Deronda, which is the last novel we're reading, is going to supplant this, but you know, we'll see. But yeah, I recently came up with a general topic that I'd like to do for that essay. I want to go and talk about it with the prof and everything to like confirm, kind of talk through some more ideas, maybe get a little bit more specific. But I think I'd like to do something with like mothers and the absence of mothers, definitely with Silas Marner, and then maybe with like Felix Holt. I think Mill on the Floss would also have some interesting comparisons, but the essay I believe is 4,000 to 5,000 words, so it's a little bit shorter than some of our other seminar papers. So I think just like 3 texts would be too much. So definitely Silas Marner and probably Felix Holt as well. I'm gonna see what the professor thinks about like bringing in another text. So yeah, that is my general plan for that. So I'm glad that I actually came up with something for that I felt like had it stirred by something, because I was also struggling with that class and I had no idea what I wanted to do, because the main thing that I've been interested in so far was how kind of incesty Mill on the Floss is. But I also feel like that's something that has been written about a fair amount. I haven't done that much research into it, but I just assume like it feels so obvious and overt. So it felt like if people haven't written on that, what are they doing? And I didn't really know where I was gonna go with it. So it's just something that I'd been kind of toying around with, but like wasn't sure if that was really what I was gonna do or wanted to do. But I think that this other idea will maybe have like a bit more ground, I guess. So yeah, we'll see. I'll try to meet with the prof and then figure it out. But for now, I'm going to head out, return my library book, and do some few other fun errand things. So I'm back now. I'd taken the bus over to the mall because I was returning something, and then I walked over to Walmart. So the only fun things that I got were a pack of pencil crayons, because I'd actually gotten 2 coloring books for Christmas. I feel like it's kind of random that it was for the same Christmas, but Megan got me this one, and she'd also gotten me a pack of markers with it. So like I've done a few pages and everything, but they're like the thick Crayola markers and everything. So it works really well for this coloring book, which obviously has like big sections. Yeah, I've done like quite a few pages. This one. And then my mom also got me this Jane Austen one, which the sections are, as you can see, a lot like smaller. So the markers wouldn't really work for that. So I was like just waiting to get a pack of pencil crayons so that I could use that. And I was slightly concerned because I didn't actually read this. So on the bus home, I was like, did I buy those and I'm gonna need a pencil sharpener now? Because I hadn't really thought about that while I was in the store. But they do come pre-sharpened, so it will only be an issue in a little while once I wear that down. I was gonna get a smaller pack because, you know, 60 seems excessive. But then I was like, you know, you always wish that you had more colors anyway. Especially because like you don't want the colors to overlap. So if you only have like 10, just doesn't really work. So yeah, I'm excited. I can do those. I like to like color and stuff while I'm like watching a movie or listening to like a podcast or something. When I was working at the golf course, if it was like a slow day and we were working inside, like on rainy days or something when there was no customers, someone had left like a few adult coloring books at work. So I would always just like have a podcast on and be coloring if there was nothing else to do. And then I'd gone to the vault to make a return, but obviously I came back with something because, of course, not from Zara, which is where I was returning things, but I got these cutie little shoes at Winners. They're like, they are mesh, which I know that that's like a thing now, and I don't mind it, but it's not like, which generally I haven't been super drawn to because I don't like the idea of like, I wear sandals all the time, but for some reason, like seeing your toes through the mesh puts me off a little bit, but like open-toed shoes don't. So I don't really know what it is, but these ones, because they have like all the floral embroidery, you don't actually really see your feet through it. And I just thought that they were really cute, and I feel like they'll go really nicely with all like my floral dresses in the summer if I don't feel like wearing sandals. But what I like about them being mesh is that my feet shouldn't overheat, because you don't want to see me if my feet are too hot. I can't handle it. I become a bad person if my feet are overheating, which I realized, I don't know if it's only become a problem over the last couple of years where it like sends me over the edge, or if it like is just worse in more humid climates. I don't know, because like it gets really hot in Saskatchewan, but it's a dry heat. But still, like if I'm wearing non-breathable shoes, your feet do still get quite hot. But I think it's just like generally in, you know, humid climate, when it's hotter out, you're just more damp. So I feel like that is what really does it. Like I told Katie when she came to visit me in England last summer to like bring sandals, because she has a pair of Birkenstocks. So I told her she should bring those, or like bring breathable shoes. And I think she thought that I was being dramatic about how hot it was over the summer, because we had that like bad heat wave in the UK. And she just brought a pair of like Adidas sneakers, so like leather, non-breathable sneakers, and she was like, I don't know if she ever fully admitted that I was correct, but if she fully said like, you're right, but the gist of it was that I had not been exaggerating. So yeah, I think these are nice. I think they're also a good option for like, you can wear casually, but will also be nice if there's like, you're ever going somewhere fancier and for some reason you don't want to wear heels. Like these are kind of a dressier, can also be like a dressier, nicer flat than just like flip-flops or something. So I thought that those were cute at Winners. I'm just like really, you know, excited for spring. I'm sick of wearing tights. That's how I measure the seasons. By fall time, I'm really excited to wear outfits with tights. And then by about this point in the year, I'm like, if I have to put on tights again, I'm gonna lose it. That's where I'm at now. But yeah, I've come home, had a bit of a snack and everything, and now I think I'm probably going to jump back into Orlando, because I'm probably gonna try to watch like the Orlando political biography movie tonight, if I can. Hopefully I'm gonna be able to find it. I haven't actually searched to see where it's available, but I'm pretty sure it's available. She said it was available to stream somewhere, so hopefully I have access to it. I just finished making another one of these bean salad things for the week because I really liked the last one that I did. So I'm trying a dill pickle one because obviously. So this one, the recipe had white beans, but I do not like the look or the taste of those ones as much. So I just did black beans, chickpeas, cucumber, bell pepper, pickles, red onion. I think that was all of the chopping. And then there's also like mayo, pickle juice, ranch seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, and then dill for the dressing. So yeah, like the last one that I made, if you eat it, like as soon as you make it, it just tastes like cucumber. But if you let it marinate in the fridge overnight or for the week, it all blends together and tastes really good. So yeah, I really like the last one, and I feel like this one will be good because like pickle, how can you go wrong? Oh, and then this recipe, she'd also put chicken in it. So I might make some tomorrow and just like have that and like add it as I eat it potentially, but I feel like it'll also be fine without if I'm not in the mood or if I don't have any. So yeah. I've just been working on a response post for Silas Marner for my George Eliot class. So basically, I think I've said we have to do like 3 response posts over the course of the term. And for the grad students, 2 of them have to be based on secondary readings. Because basically for almost every class, someone has to come with 3 prompts. For the grad students, it's just one based on the section we were reading. We have to pull out a passage from that section, and then we have to have 1 question built from the secondary readings that are assigned. But the undergrads that are in that class don't have to do the secondary readings, they're only reading the primary text. So there weren't actually any grad students assigned to the Silas Marner sections because I think we had 2 or 3 classes for Silas Marner. I think that there was 3 classes and then a 4th date for the presentation. So yeah, so the book was split up into kind of 3 sections to finish. But the professor said like if anybody wants to do their response about Silas Marner and wants to still like do it for because we have to do, the grad students have to do 2 prompts based on the secondary reading. 1 can be just on the text itself. And she was like, since there aren't any grad students for Silas Marner, like she didn't want to kind of exclude us from doing a response post to that book. So she said like, you can kind of basically come up with your own kind of prompt for the secondary readings, essentially. Like you can write a response about them just kind of like based on something you picked out yourself instead of something in response to someone's question. So I decided to do that because yeah, I really like Silas Marner, so I was like, I might as well write on that instead of writing 2 on Daniel Deronda because I have 2 left. So I'm writing it based on this one other reading. So it's by Susan Stewart, and it's an essay called Genres of Work, the Folktale and Silas Marner. And it was primarily, looking at the folkloric elements in the text, and it was also talking a little bit about industrialization and also a lot on sort of like the valuation of work versus labor. And I thought that that was really interesting because like the idea of work or industry isn't necessarily the first thing that you pick up on when you're reading Silas Marner, but it is really there, especially because Silas becomes like so obsessed with weaving and his gold and everything. But it's like, it's depicted as not about like the work itself, it's more like his obsession with it. So I thought that that was kind of an interesting thread to pull. So I'm going to talk about how like work is depicted and that author's sort of definitions of work versus labor. I'm not going to finish it tonight. I don't think I'll probably finish it tomorrow at some point, but yeah, it was nice to get like some of that done. And I think it's it was a cool article. I really enjoyed that one. And then I think we had 3 total for Silas Marner. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think it was 3. because it was kind of just like written a bit weird on the schedule, because I think we had 2 for one day and then 2 for another day, but the second one had to do with Daniel Deronda, if I remember correctly. It's all a blur. It was last week already. Okay, so I just finished Orlando, the Sally Potter one. I realized that basically we're probably not going to have our Wolf class this coming week, because the Dallas Student Union just called a strike. I think it's kind of up in the air if we're gonna have our George Eliot class tomorrow, but from my understanding, this strike, this one's like student-led, is primarily about like tuition rebates and other issues like that arose from the faculty lockout at the start of the year, because we basically had no classes for a month and a half, and there was no tuition rebates or refunds from that, which is not, I don't believe is like, I mean, there was another school, I forget which school off the top of my head, that had a similar situation, and I think the strike was for a similar amount of time, and they did pay back students' tuition for that time. I don't know if it was like in its entirety or if it was like a partial rebate, but yeah, so it's not like without precedent that they should be paying it back. So I think that's kind of like the main thing to do with this strike. So basically, we were going to be talking about Orlando, my political biography this week, but that's getting pushed to next week because one of the students in the classes is leading her seminar on it. So just for the sake of like making sure that that one wasn't derailed, the prof decided to just like kind of cancel the classes for this week and like move that to next week so that like her seminar doesn't get canceled, essentially, like depending on what is decided, because I think it's getting confirmed like tomorrow if the strike is happening in its entirety. This one, honestly, I don't know all the details about this one. I feel like I'm less in tune with it and with what's going on. Yeah, like we don't even know if class is happening tomorrow yet for George Eliot, because I believe that the professor said she was like waiting to hear from the Senate before she said if classes were canceled. At least that's what we were talking about in our group chat earlier this evening. So I was going to watch Orlando, my political biography tonight, and the Sally Potter Orlando either tomorrow or Tuesday, so that I would like, so I could come up with my discussion questions and stuff for my political biography. But since it's not until next week, I decided to watch the Sally Potter one tonight, which I did really enjoy. I do not understand the singing angel at the end of it. That felt so random. It was amusing, but I don't know if I fully get it. It was like, yeah, I can't say that I was struck by a clear idea for my essay, so I'll have to think about it a bit more. But I did really like the movie. I've never seen it before, I've only seen clips. I love the costuming, except for Billy Zane's wig, which is not even that the wig was like so bad. It's just that I don't think I've seen Billy Zane in anything other than Titanic. So seeing him styled as in this kind of like bodice ripper romance hero fashion was so funny. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I feel like it's funny from the start. Like there's this one bit where Orlando is like sleeping for 7 days, and the like physicians and servants are like trying to figure it out, and they're like, he's sleeping. So their solution is to just like keep saying good morning to him to see if he'll wake up. And it's so funny in the movie. And then like, but I feel like it kind of leans into the comedy a bit more, and Orlando's even kind of lightheartedness once he becomes a woman. Like there's the whole thing about, well, you're legally dead and you're also a woman, which is essentially the same thing. And I feel that, you know, that's where kind of the gender critique comes in a little bit. And that I think was played very amusingly. But one thing that I did find interesting is that I feel like, especially at the start of the movie when Orlando is like very young. I mean, he's like, they're the same age all the way through it, but like, you know what I mean, when he's like not 200 years old. I feel like in the book, Orlando comes off as much more kind of like exuberant or tempestuous and emotional, I guess, whereas in this one, like, Orlando like feels very serious at the start. Like, it's still kind of funny and the movie and like a little wacky and everything, but Orlando himself seems so serious, which I feel like in the book Orlando has that, but also in a way that's like very dramatic. And I feel like you don't see that as much. The movie definitely like hints at his kind of flightiness and everything, but I feel like it doesn't lean into like kind of the drama of his character maybe as much until potentially a little bit later. So I thought that was interesting. I liked how it did the Sasha character. I thought that was good. Yeah, I don't know. It was a nice change of pace because I feel like I've been binging a lot of reality TV lately. Like, you know, I had to watch Love is Blind. Everyone on that show sucks. I don't know if there was a person that I liked this season. I initially liked Jordan and Amber or Ashley. But at the reunion, I was like, yeah, you guys kind of have, I don't know about your vibes. And then Connor, I really didn't like at the start of the show. And then he kind of grew on me because I feel like he was just minding his own business, you know? And then I also binged the new season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Jen and Zach both suck. Jessie also kind of sucks. I feel bad for her situation with her husband because her husband is like rotten. But Jessie also, like with all the other girls, she sucks. She is a pop star. And then I also watched the episodes that are out of Age of Attraction, which like is disgusting. Nick and his wife already are potentially the worst people on the internet, so I don't find them particularly charismatic hosts. And then it's giving grooming. Like, they keep saying, Nick and his wife too are like, you know, she was just so mature for her age. She looked at Nick and was like, this is a guy who's gonna want the same things as me. No, I think because she was in her early 20s and he was in like his 40s when they got together, and she slid into his DMs and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you did that because you were like, that guy would make a great dad. I'm sure. You know, I don't really understand why Nick is so famous from like The Bachelor stuff. Like, I don't watch The Bachelor, but I know he's been on a billion seasons, but I don't really like that now he's involved in all of these shows. I mean, I know The Bachelor is like a predominantly female fan base, but the fact that he's commenting on like all of these women, like, why was he hosting the reunion for the last season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives? Get out of here. This isn't about you. This isn't for you. And you suck. And I think hate women. And Age of Attraction, gross. I do not need to see 60-year-old men with 27-year-old women and attempting to explain that to me. And also, that guy was gross. Specifically the 60-year-old guy that was with the 27-year-old. But obviously the point of the show is to have these like very extreme age gaps and to be like, whoa. But I didn't like that like they didn't show any of the couples that matched up that were about the same age, because there were a lot of couples. They showed like a montage that they were like, and look, all these other people matched up, but they're like the same ages, so we're not gonna follow them. But I feel like the show might have been more interesting if they'd contrasted it with couples who didn't have a very extreme age gap and been like, will they work? Are you guys not working because of the age gap, or are you not working because like you're rotten? Or because this is a terrible way to date because it's a reality show. But they don't do that. They just have people with like, I think the smallest age gap is like 18 years. And all I learned from that show is that people are very bad at guessing ages. So Orlando was definitely better than all of that slot. But yeah, I don't entirely know what I would write about on it. I still have like some chapters left of Orlando, so I do need to like fully finish it. And then like, I'm gonna do some other research and read and like keep percolating for what I wanna do. But yeah, we'll see. I think it was cool as an adaptation for what I've seen so far. It doesn't deal with any of the kind of racial problems of it, which I do think makes sense for the film adaptation. Like, not to kind of erase it from the story, but to be like, okay, what do we actually do with this? Because obviously Virginia Woolf is like trying to do something, but it's kind of unclear what she's trying to do, and she's doing it really badly. So then I feel like it's either you take it out or you completely like rewrite that to make it something else, but then it's like, and what should it be? So I think that like that decision does make sense for the movie. It's not the same thing at all, but it did make me think of like the Wuthering Heights question of like, okay, yes, in the book, Heathcliff is a person of color, but what does that actually look like if we did that as a movie? Particularly a movie by Emerald Fennell. Like, I don't think Emerald Fennell is the person to be like writing and telling that story, but also like, what would it look like regardless? Like, we have this person of color who's like treated horribly and then becomes like an absolute monster later in the film. If we're doing actual Wuthering Heights, like how is that coming across? How's that playing? So I think that like that's where Wuthering Heights is a hard book to adapt, and I could see that being difficult in Orlando as well. Especially if you like depict it as it is in Orlando, you absolutely could not do that. Sorry, my camera had died. I think I was basically saying though that like, I don't think you can't do Orlando as it is in the book, or those aspects of Orlando as it is in the book, just in a film, or you shouldn't. And I think that like for what this movie was doing, it makes sense that those aspects of it were left out. I would be curious to see an adaptation that is like reckoning with that a little bit more. So I'm curious if my political biography does, because yeah, really all I know about that movie is the like casting thing, which itself I think is really cool. So yeah, I'm curious to see what that movie's like and how it's different from this one. But yeah, overall I did really enjoy the movie. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to come up with something with that. Okay, so I've written some updates in my reading journal. I read a little bit more of Orlando this evening, and I also have most of a draft done for the prompt that I want to do on Felix Holt, so I'll probably finish that at some point tomorrow. So I'm gonna call it quits for tonight, and I'm probably just gonna watch like an episode of something and then go to bed. So this should be a shorter one, unless I really rambled on a lot. Which, you know, is always possible. So thanks for watching, and catch you in the next one.